Call this meeting to order at 5:32. I call this meeting of the Northwest Independent School District to order. Let the record show that a quorum of board members is present. This meeting has been duly called, and that this meeting has been posted in accordance with Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code 551. We will now adjourn into executive session. Boom. Good evening, everybody. I know everybody's excited to be here tonight. I know that I am, and the rest of the board members are. We're now going to reconvene for our regular meeting. If you would, please rise for the invocation and pledge. Dr. Warren.
All right. Folks, good to see everybody tonight. Thank you for coming. If you feel comfortable doing so, please pray with me. Our dear Heavenly Father, Lord, we thank you for this day. And Lord, just thank you for allowing us to be part of such a wonderful school district. And Lord, thank you for blessing us with the children that we serve. We ask you to be with our board members tonight, Lord, as they do our business. Thank you for our district leaders, our teachers, Lord, our parents who are here, our community members, our community leaders, and just thank you just for giving them a heart for children as well. Above all thing else, Lord, that we ask that you provide your love, your guidance, your wisdom, and your protection to our children. It's in your name we pray. Amen. All right, folks, we have 4 very special pledgers tonight. So I think this is a new one for us. This is a family, and if we had one more, we'd make a basketball team. We have the McGraths. Hello, guys.
Hello.
Hello. All right, Caleb, wave at everybody. God, this is Caleb McGrath, and we have Brian and Jill here, parents. Brian, Jill, thank you for coming. Thank you for bringing them. Caleb is a 4th grader at Sendero Ranch. He loves to read, and he loves math. He loves to play with his friends, and he loves playing with the triplets. Right, Caleb? Do you take care of them?
Sometimes.
There we go. Good answer. All right, Aaron, wave at everybody. Erin is a 1st grader at Sendero Ranch, and she loves to read chapter books. She loves playing outside, painting, and hanging out with her family, of which she has a few, right? Good job, Erin. Allison, wave at everybody. Allison is a 1st grader at Sendero Ranch. Math is her favorite subject, and she loves to practice gymnastics. Cool, Allison. And she loves to write. Keep writing, Allison. And then Connor, wave at everybody. Connor is a 1st grader at Sendero Ranch. Connor, what's your favorite subject? Go ahead and tell everybody.
PE.
There you go. But he says I like math too. So good job, Connor. This is what your principal said about you. The McGrath kids were selected because they are great leaders. They lead by their behavior, their character, and they excel academically. We are proud of them, and we are we're glad that they chose NISD this year. So thank y'all for being here. We're going to say the pledge to the American flag and then pledge to the Texas flag. So whenever you guys are ready.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Great job. Now Texas.
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to the Texas, one state under God, one indivisible.
Great job. Now stay right there. We got a little gift for you.
That brings us down to item number 5, which is recognitions. Dr. Warren.
Mrs. Conklin.
Yes, We have several recognitions this evening, so if Dr. Warren and President Schluter can join me at the front. We're going to begin this evening with recognizing our purchasing staff. So I'd like to ask Executive Director of Purchasing Mark Vachon and any of his team members. I believe Krista Spearman is here and Dana Chandler. If anyone else is here from purchasing, please come to the front. So they have received the Award of Merit for Purchasing Operations with recognized status from the Texas Association of School Business Officials. TASB recognized 30 school districts across the state for following best practices in purchasing operations. This is the third consecutive year and 7th overall year that NISD has received this award. Okay, next we're recognizing our communications department. So we have Melissa Shawn, Rachel Bobbitt, and Anthony Tosi. They can come to the front. Jerry. They've received 8 state awards from the Texas School Public Relations Association for video production, printed and electronic publications, written articles, and the district's website. Okay, and next I'd like to invite our Director of Safety and Security, Mike Conklin, as well as Safety Coordinator Alan Beck to the front. We also have Officer Ryan McLaurin, Ethan Montando, I'm so sorry, Haley Kaufman, Kane Carver, Madeline Escona, Tatum Bubello, Sean Conklin, Casey Norman, and Deputy Mary Martin. You guys can all come to the front. The students this evening are from Northwest and Byron Nelson High Schools, and they are being recognized for the Campus Crime Stoppers, who received 3 state awards from the Texas Crime Stoppers Campus Conference. And they're being recognized for the Productivity Award, which is the greatest dollar recovery in most cases cleared for a school district population of 20,000 to 25,000 students. They also received the Traveling Trophy Award. And this award is judged and awarded during the students' time at the conference by other programs and agency leadership. And they also received an award for their participation, enthusiasm, and professionalism during the conference. And Mike Conklin also received the Coordinator of the Year Award. Okay, next we're recognizing Monica Valenta. If you can come to the front. Monica is the facilitator of Northwest ISD's Academy of Biomedical Sciences. She has been named by Project Lead the Way the Biomedical Science Teacher of the Year. She won this honor for her ability to inspire, engage, and empower students by creating transformative learning experiences in her classroom. She was among just 5 teachers to receive awards in their field.
Celine, did you want a picture? No, we're good.
Come on, Celine.
Come on.
For the next 2 awards, we'd like to invite to the front any of the NISD Education Foundation Board of Directors who are present with us this evening. If you would, go and join us at the front. At the 2018 Northwest Metroport Chamber of Commerce Gala, the NISD Education Foundation was selected by other business professionals in the area as the nonprofit of choice, naming the organization the heart of the region. NEF's mission is to provide financial support to empower NISD educators, engage the community, and encourage future-ready students. All right, thank you. For our last recognition, I'd like to invite Bobby Morris, Director of College and Career Readiness, to the front. The Education Foundation would like to present Northwest ISD a check for $7,000 to fund the advanced placement testing for more than 160 students at the district's 4 high schools. The district is very appreciative of the Education Foundation for funding these efforts to allow more students an opportunity to take these tests.
Good job. Very good job.
This concludes our recognitions for the evening.
That moves us down to item number 6, which is public participation, and we do have one Miss Leslie Weaver signed up to speak. If you would, Leslie, come to the podium. State your name and address for the record, and it's good to see you back with us.
Thank you. Leslie Weaver, 1228 Raleigh Michael Lane, Fort Worth, 76179. Board of Trustees, Dr. Warren, thank you for allowing us the opportunity to speak from the community. And I'm here to speak tonight about the Leo Adams Middle School attendance boundaries. I know you had a town hall a couple weeks ago, and I had a work conflict that night, so wasn't able to attend and just kind of share my perspective. So I wanted to have that chance one last time. I've had a kid or two in the district for 10 years. We moved here in 2008, and I thank you for everything you've done to take care of my kids, and many of you in the room, and principals and teachers, and you've done an excellent job helping me to raise my family. I do want to address the rumors of what has been changed with the attendance boundaries, and I know when I've looked online, I've only seen the same maps proposed, so I assume that's what you're going to be voting on tonight, but there is a rumor that my neighborhood in particular, Vista Ranch, would be kind of plucked out, and students who have attended Schluter for all 5 years would now have to go to Chisholm Trail and then return to Eaton and not have the opportunity to be with all of their friends. So that's what I'm here to address tonight. My daughter has looked forward to attending Adams. She has known since the time she was in kindergarten, and I think we dedicated Schluter Elementary, and she sat next to you and Mrs. Schluter, that she was going to be going to a middle school right there one day. She loves the idea of being a part of a first school. She loves the idea of being with all of her friends that she's known since kindergarten. And as you know, those middle school years are so important to kids, and we know that they want to have friends near them. I can remember when Nance and Schluter split, and we were going to Schluter, and I was all excited for my son. And at the time, I got to drop my son off every day at school, and he used to tell me every day how he hated going to Schluter. And I thought that was the craziest thing. He had the best principal in the world. He had this brand new building. And what it was is he missed his friends. The neighborhoods just happened to be split to where his best friends went to Nance and he went to Schluter. As soon as they got back together in 6th grade, all of that was gone. He once again loved school. And I just don't want to see that happen to my daughter. The other thing, driving out to Chisholm Trail, I pass Wilson Middle School. I pass what will now be Adams Middle School, even Wayside Middle School, Leadership Institute of Texas. All of these things are closer to my house than Chisholm Trail. And 2 days a week, we are forced to, my husband and I, to leave work early to go out and pick up my daughter so that she can make it to her other activities, her out-of-school activities. She's on a nationally ranked volleyball team, and that is very important to her. And in order for us to get her to practice on time, because of how far Chisholm Trail is and how long the bus takes to get her back home, we literally have to leave work 2 days a week. I know if she were closer to home and had a shorter bus route, we would not be faced with that decision to make as parents. Sorry, I had notes, see what else here. When we were setting the Wilson attendance boundary, are y'all going to tell me a time?
I'm sorry, yes, I forgot my 5-minute speech on you only have 3 minutes. So.
Is it up?
Finish what you
Yes, sorry.
When we were looking at Wilson attendance boundary 6-7 years ago, however many that was, at the time there was the idea that people who attended Schluter Elementary would be a true feeder to go into the new middle school once it opened, and we didn't want to move families twice, right? Take them to Wilson, even though it was closer to all of our homes in Chisholm Trail, and then move them again when the now Adams would open. Had I known that there might be a chance that my kids wouldn't be attending a school closer to home, I probably would have fought to attend Wilson years ago. But I saw kind of the bigger picture, and I'm hoping that you guys are still looking at the bigger picture now, and I thank you for the opportunity to speak on behalf of my daughter, Danielle.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Weaver. And my apologies for missing my 5-minute disclosure speech. That's okay. Moving on to item number 7, consent agenda. Dr. Warren.
Board, your consent agenda is posted on your agenda. You have 5 items, and we will recommend approval.
Mr. President,
Dr. Roush.
I motion that we approve the consent agenda as submitted.
Second.
A motion has been made by Dr. Roush, seconded by Ms. Kopp. All those in favor? Motion carries 5-0. Mr. Wright is not present this evening. Moving on to item number 8, discussion action, possible casting of votes for the ESC Region 11 Board of Directors.
Board, on your, Jennifer, at each place, correct? Each place is your own specific ballot. If you will fill that out as you see fit, you may vote for any of the 3 places that are up, not just Tarrant County. I misstated. Jennifer corrected me today that you can vote for any of those, any of the places, place 1, 4, 7. So Mr. Blair, I think, will be easy one.
Well, because he's all alone?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And then if you'll pass those down to me toward the end of the evening, and we will get those recorded for you at ESC 11.
So everybody has their ballot? Nobody's missing one? Excellent. Okay, cool. Moving down to B, which is Local District Update 2018-02, update to the board policy, DEB Local. Dr. Warren.
Board, the information on DBE Local begins on page 45 in your packet. This is an update to the policy, and Christy has done a PowerPoint in your event. Christy or Kim are going to give you the go through that policy, and for self-serving reasons, this is of particular interest to the superintendent. So please, Christy.
All right. You do have the dynamic duo of Christy Hodge and Dr. Kim Cayley presenting on this one. Board Policy Update 2018-02 to change Board Policy DBE Local. And I'm going to give you a brief update on what DBE Legal provides and the change that the local policy currently makes to that, the additions that it makes. And then Dr. Cayley will address why we are proposing that it be changed at this time. So nepotism law and board policy, DBE Legal, is summarized, of course, in board policy with 4 pages of policy about what public officials can and can't do in terms of employing or appointing relatives to district employment. Basically, it prohibits public officials from appointing a person to a district employment position when the public official is related to the potential employee by either consanguinity, which means related by blood, or by affinity, which is related by marriage. The relationships that are at issue with this, under consanguinity or blood, it's the first 3 degrees, so that can extend to a board member's parent, child, grandparent, grandchild, brother, or sister, and on into the 3rd degree, great-grandparents, great-grandchildren, aunts, uncles, nieces, and nephews. The relationships by affinity or by marriage would be the 1st or 2nd degree, and those folks would include, obviously, your spouse, mother-in-law, father-in-law, son-in-law, daughter-in-law, or your spouse's grandparent, grandchild, or brother-in-law or sister-in-law. So those are all the folks that we're talking about that would be affected by the nepotism law. Under Texas law, public officials for this include school trustees, of course, and it includes the trustee it includes the superintendent when the superintendent has final hiring authority. So in this district, that would include the superintendent only with respect to non-contractual personnel, because as you know, you all approve contracts for employees, and so the board has final hiring authority for contract personnel. The nepotism law does not apply to employees who are grandfathered in before the trustee or superintendent's appointment or election. And so there's a safe harbor period where if the employee was employed for a period of 30 days before your election or 30 days before an appointment or 6 months before an election, those folks are exempt. Now, DBE Local makes 2 additional restrictions on what the legal policy provides. Currently, the local policy shortens that grandfathering period, or it extends the grandfathering period. Legally, by law, we have to have 30 days before the appointment or 6 months before the election for a person to be employed by the district before your own election to the board would interfere with that. The local policy extends that to 1 calendar year beyond what the law requires. Additionally, under our legal policy, the superintendent is a public official only as to non-contract personnel. But the local policy adds an additional restriction and makes the superintendent a public official for all employees, whether they're hired under contract or at will. All right, Dr. Bailey.
So tonight we are asking and making the recommendation that we rescind DBE Local, just to remove any unnecessary restrictions in the hiring process. The nepotism restrictions that are found in both state law and in DBE Legal still stand, and they would protect the district from any potential conflicts of interest. This is a discussion action item tonight, so we are asking for approval and are happy to answer any questions.
No questions.
Board would recommend approval, please.
Mr. President,
Ms. Cobb.
I move to approve the local district update 2018.02 and rescind board policy DBE Local as recommended by the administration.
A motion has been made by Ms. Cobb, seconded by Mr. Sproles to approve the motion as read. Any further discussion on this item? All those in favor? Do you have something to ask?
No, I
Oh, go ahead. We haven't taken the vote yet.
Can I still say?
Yes, ma'am, you sure can.
I'm trying to think of how I want to say what I have to say. I think that this was put into effect because of something that happened in our district in the past, and that there was a reason why there's a reason why it was done. And so I don't agree with getting rid of it, I guess is what I want to say.
Okay, any other comments?
Could you give us a little bit of background in terms of how many districts have local policies?
Sure. Yeah, I did some informal research on this. There were maybe 2 or 3 districts I found that have these additional restrictions. Most of the districts I looked at do not have these additional restrictions, simply because the legal policy and the law really provide sufficient protection against nepotism for the most part. So not many districts have this additional local policy.
Any other questions? Do we have a motion on the table? All those in favor? Those opposed? Motion carries 4-1.
Thank you, Board.
Thank you.
Moving on to 8C. Boy, have I seen this one on the agenda before.
I think we have.
Establish attendance boundaries for Leo Adams Middle School. Dr. Warren.
All right, Board, we have our PowerPoint up and running. Let me make a couple of comments before Tim goes through the presentation one more time. First of all, I hope everybody appreciates the board's leadership in this. We've had a lot of great discussions about this. There's been a lot of prayer. There's been a lot of consideration of this. Folks, I'll say this. The board is not going to make the wrong decision tonight. No matter what decision that is made, they're going to make the decision for what the best is for our children in the affected areas. So I'm very pleased with the process we've laid out from when Tim and the committee started this several months ago all the way through tonight. I think there's a lot of leadership, a lot of I hope everyone knows that the concern for us has always been listening to those concerns, listening to our parents, listening to our communities, so that we could get the full picture of this. And this is not going to be a one and done issue. We're going to, as we grow dynamically through the years, as we have been, these decisions are going to be prominent for us, and we're going to be brought to these kind of meetings quite often to see where our kids need to go to school, and depending on where they live in the district. This did present a particular challenge, just because, again, of the demographics and lack of in certain areas of our district, and the demographics and the abundance in other areas. So, Tim, I'd like Mr. McClure to go through the presentation one more time, and after he is completed, I will give you my recommendation one more time.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Warren. Good evening, board. We'll just jump right in here. Of course, there's the committee process that started, again, the work began with Templeton, our demographic vendor. Templeton Demographics has been with the district for several years now, through our growth even back in the early 2000s, knows our district well. Worked with them back in September to start to look at campuses that were over capacity, and knowing that we had 2 campuses that we would be opening, what would that process be, and what would the boundaries be as we work together for those opportunities. In December, we reached out to the affected areas, the principals of the affected areas, and made sure they were involved in the selection of a teacher from each campus and parents from each campus. And then in January, after our break, we came in and started the boundary committee process. Of course, recommendations were presented to you. We had a Facebook Live event on the 13th. We had an attendance boundary open public meeting. Then on the 26th, we deferred the recommendation, or the Board of Trustees deferred the recommendation. And then since then, we've had multiple conversations with the community and different types of venues, and obviously received, as you know, lots of feedback that has been in your inbox as well. During the process, we went through these core beliefs like we always do. We went through the concerns and strategies over how to reach a consensus as we go through the process of making those tough decisions and bringing a recommendation forward to you. We stated that the current statistics, we walked them through that. Bob Templeton, the Templeton Demographics, were here to provide growth projections so that they understood the district's growth scenarios and where those pockets of growth were occurring. We reviewed the recommended attendance boundary changes, and then we started through the process of feedback analysis and options. Ultimately, these were the campuses that were originally slated to be affected. As you know, we removed Beck and Roanoke after further analysis there. Previously, you guys have already made the call on the recommendations from the committee on those other 4 boundary moves. And that brings us to the current middle school attendance boundary map. As you can see, Chisholm Trail in the pink area there goes basically from almost the furthest northern point of the district to almost the furthest southern point of the district. And so that's where we started. During that process, we looked at the opportunity to keep pure feeder patterns. That was very much discussed with the Eaton feeder boundary, and how do we keep a pure middle school feeder to Eaton. And so that was where we kind of started. The hinge point became this area, as I've talked to you, in the south, which is the Peterson feeder, elementary feeder, that currently feeds partly to Tidwell and partly currently feeds all the way to Tidwell, but Tidwell then feeds into Byron Nelson, and that portion right there currently feeds into Eaton. So coming back from Tidwell, they were split. So that was our highest yields of students in the entire district occur in that neighborhood as far as number of yields per home. So that became a focus point of how do we move these numbers around, what is the best way to split that feeder up, trying to accommodate the pure feeder patterns and what would not bust other school attendance zones. So we went through several different scenarios, as you see there, of looking at taking a part of it, keeping it at Tidwell, moving it to Adams, taking a part of it, moving it to Wilson, keeping a part of it at Adams, and then, of course, taking a lesser part and moving it to Wilson. As you can see, and it's evident in the numbers there, wherever that neighborhood went, and that Peterson Elementary School feeder zone, it became the linchpin because of the number of kids that we have in that portion of our district. Even splitting it up, it started to cause a burden, continued burden at Tidwell, and flip the numbers from Tidwell to Wilson. So we came back, we looked at the big picture again, and during this process, since we have been deferred and the conversation has been having, we've ran through some boundary studies. Now, these studies, I'm going to walk you through. Most of these studies were discussed. There's a couple that weren't discussed during the committee meetings, and I'll point those out as we get through them just so you're aware of them. But what you see here is the current scenario of the recommendation that's before you today. You see the numbers below, and then at the very bottom you see, and this will be consistent on every study that you see, I think we have 6 of them, you see the number of students from the Chisholm feeder and the Eaton feeder, and then where will they, or the Chisholm feeder, where will they go? Will they go to Eaton or would they go to Northwest? And then the total number of students. As you can see in this one, no Chisholm students would go to Eaton. They would all go together to Northwest High School. So that's the study there. At the bottom, you can see the numbers in the graph of what that does. The next one, and you notice we start to just kind of inch that pink back down to where it was. So the first one, the first study, or the second study there, moves down just a little bit down FM 718 and grabs basically one neighborhood and another section of streets with, it's not a complete neighborhood, but several different streets with some houses there. And then you can see the resultant of that as well, too. The Chisholm Trail numbers go up a little bit, and then you see the Eaton feeder students. If the high school, we're assuming the high school feeder stayed the same because we did not have those up for discussion. So you would see that from Chisholm, now you'd have 8% of that school going back to Eaton and the 92% going on to Northwest. So we inch down a little bit further into the Vista Ranch neighborhood, going along Business 287, headed south. And again, you can see the continued slight increase at Chisholm in total numbers and the percentages of how the students are split going to their high school feeders. We then move all the way down to basically across the street from Adams, right across from Eagle Drive there, and capture the bulk of that pink area that was reaching to the south, or currently reaches to the south today for Chisholm. And again, you can see the numbers increase slightly more, and the percentages get closer to a balance, but still 23% coming back to Eaton and 77% moving on to Northwest. So at this point, we start to we're up against Adams boundary, or Adams physical property. So we say, well, where else can we look to try to bring some students in? And so we did a study to look into the Pike zone. Now, this was not discussed during the committee process. This is something that's come about since the deferred vote. And so we said, well, let's just see what happens if we start to pull a little bit more equal between Pike and Chisholm. As you can see in the north there, Pike is taking up a very, very large geographic portion of our district. And so we said, well, what if we balance that out a little bit? If you'll also remember, we talked a little bit about this scenario because along 114 we have 5 different developments that are soon to be bringing in close to 5,000 to 6,000 homes. So what we tried to do there is try to capture a few of those on 114, kind of split those 5 down the middle, take, I think it's 3 one way and leave 2 to Pike. As you remember from the demographic projections, none of those developments, there's one development, Alpha Ranch, that's currently shown in the pink area here, that is just now started to push permit process through to City of Fort Worth. The rest of those developments are sitting a little bit stagnant. We've talked about the construction on 114 and how we think, it's a big think, but we think that that will open up the opportunity for those developers to come in, and we feel like they've been waiting on that road construction to get done for some time. But these are a large number of homes along 114, and so that's where that move starts to go. You can see that obviously that still keeps everybody in a true Northwest High School feeder. It gives a little bit to Chisholm. Again, it's not a lot. We're dealing with a scenario where our very high densities of homes that produce the highest yields just are not in the geographic area that we would like for them to be in order to get those numbers more balanced. So there was the sixth study, or the fifth study, and then the sixth study is basically saying let's take all of it, all those studies that we looked at in these past few weeks, and see what that did to the numbers. And you can see it does help out Chisholm a lot there. You see the balance of the students, the percentages going to Eaton and versus Northwest, and the feeder study there at the bottom.
And Tim, let me clarify one thing.
Yes.
When we go east on 114 and you take in those PAC neighborhoods.
Yes.
You said the committee did not really look at that option, correct?
We did not. Pike was not being considered at that time. Pike certainly had the capacity to continue their current boundary, and so Pike was not being considered as a changed boundary at that time.
And so it would be safe to assume that the parents, the families in these areas probably would not be aware of these two options as well, correct?
I would say that's 100% accurate.
You just wanted to make sure the board understood the numbers that it would be able to do, but we would not have had feedback from them.
No, sir.
For fiber, okay.
No, sir. That is a correct statement. So there's the final study that we did, just trying to say what was the most biggest impact to Chisholm to try to keep their numbers a little bit higher than what the recommendation shows. And so ultimately, coming back to the recommendation is what you see there.
So, board, as a superintendent, I am recommending that you approve the original committee decision. I think the committee, led by Tim, did a fantastic job of looking at all the different scenarios to be able to do this, to make this decision. But we want to make sure, if you do not feel comfortable doing so and then taking the committee recommendation, you do have other options to take if you choose to do so.
Mr. Sluter, I move to reconvene the Attendance Boundary Committee, tasking the committee with designing a new attendance zone for Leo Adams Middle School that considers feedback provided by the Board of Trustees in its meetings, deliberations, and meets the following parameters. Maximizes efficiency of Chisholm Trail Middle School and Leo Adams Middle School through the balanced enrollment of each school to the extent possible. Employs a solution-based decision by using forecast demographics to minimize future changes to Leo Adams Middle School. Provides an enrollment projection for Leo Adams Middle School that does not exceed the administration's goal of 105% enrollment over the next 3 years.
Dr. Simpson has made a motion as read. Is there a second?
I second.
Motion has been made by Dr. Simpson, seconded by Dr. Roush. Any further discussion on that motion? Does it need to be reread?
I've sent copies.
Yeah, sure. So basically for the audience, the motion was to move to reconvene the Attendance Boundary Committee, tasking the committee with designing a new attendance zone for Leo Adams Middle School that considers feedback provided by the Board of Trustees in its meeting deliberations and meeting the following parameters. Maximizes efficiency at Chisholm Trail Middle School, Leo Adams Middle School through balanced enrollment at each school to the extent possible. Number 2, employs a solution-based decision by using forecast demographics to minimize future changes to Leo Adams Middle School. And third, to provide an enrollment projection for Leo Adams Middle School that does not exceed the administration's goal of 100% enrollment within 3 years.
And Board, as you read through Dr. Simpson's recommendation, her motion, administrators, I want you to think about a timeline that we would need to make sure we adhere to have the time to properly open Adams Middle School. And I think we need to give the Board some guidance on that because I know we all thought that this decision was going to be made about a month ago, and that's what we've kind of laid out our plans on. But we need to...
Dr. Warren, I think you should wait till after the vote to see how the vote turns out. Is that okay?
Are you sure you don't want to do that? Because this information might be very important for that vote.
Yeah, I'll allow discussion.
I mean, preferably we had hoped to have internal transfers so that teachers knew where they were going to be next year by spring break. We had thought after this, hoping to have that done by the end of March. So I would say, at least for the staffing portion, mid-April, because it's just going to keep us from being able to hire externally until we get our internal teachers moved and know how many students are going to be at each campus.
Yes, ma'am.
Delaying the decision, how's that going to affect our kids who want to, I know I've got some calls, kids wanting to register for certain things or apply to be in certain activities. They can't, I think other middle schools are doing that right now. What's that going to do to our kids?
I believe Dr. Ferris could speak to the tours and registration that is going on right now. We can make them all, and it will affect some staffing decisions. Haley said, both inside the number of times we meet where the educators will be located. Dr. Ferris, can you add that?
One thing I would add is we've given instructions to sort for a lot of those choices, thankfully middle school, aside from band instrument fitting, which Dr. Lacefield has informed us is really a May issue, cheer trial for import. So those are things that, again, I would refer to him, but those can be delayed. And we have given out very generic information in the sense that we welcome families to visit different campuses to look at that, to hear what the middle school registration process is. And we've been very careful to let them know that depending on which zone, how they're affected, may impact exactly where they are, but we've been able to advise them thus far with general information so that they're making much more decisions. From data services, we're delaying the next year building. So as we continue to wait, we're having to delay the next year building, which delays course requests and those students scheduled for returning home. So it is a cascade effect on the data services side and the campuses, knowing where the next year students will come into.
But those kids that are in limbo that don't know where they're going to go, the kids that do know where they're going, they're not getting to choose those things prior to those kids that haven't.
To this point, we delayed it until after spring break. Pending this decision.
So they would still have the opportunity to have choice because it would be delayed.
Absolutely, right now.
I appreciate everyone's input. I know people have worked very hard on this. But I really feel like when we have, I appreciate the Sluter families that think they've seen Adams grow up, and I think those are things to consider. But I also have looked at the 10-year forecast that Templeton provided, and it looks like that our campus capacity at middle school will be about 6,900, and we won't reach that until 22-23. However, Adams will reach that, if I'm reading this correctly, at 2021. And so again, I don't know, I guess my concern is cannot see quite how we have addressed the boundary committee strategies fully. And the fact that there are 2 additional plans that were not shared, I would appreciate the committee taking another look and keeping that within the recommendations of administration, and that's 95% to 105%.
Mr. McClure, obviously there is a big disparity, and you say that the highest concentration of volume is in that 287.35, and with the Adams going to be over capacity here in a couple of years, how much growth is there? I mean, do you have specifically how many houses are growing there versus when you look at Chisholm, it's flatline, no growth out there at all. So I'm kind of curious if we move the boundaries, is there any hope for Chisholm to catch up anytime soon? I guess that's what I'm getting at. What are the numbers of that southeast corridor versus the northwest corridor?
So currently, right now, the south, so let's say the Adams boundary as you see it up there today. Within that Adams boundary, there are currently 11 active subdivisions and 5 future planned subdivisions within that current boundary. So that's 16 total. The fascinating part of that, which is what is the struggle of this district, because we are a fast growth district, but we are not a balanced fast growth district, meaning growing equally in all parts. But out of those 16 active and future home developments, 14 of them occur south of Adams, or equal to Adams. So either right next to Adams or south along the 287 corridor. There's only 2 active developments north of Adams, and that is Vista Ranch and Newark Ranch. In Vista Ranch, their future number of homes is 0. Their current vacant developed lots, meaning they could build a house on today, is 6. So they are effectively built out in Vista Ranch. Newark Ranch, their future number of homes is 137. However, as a resident of there, I can tell you that was based on 2 other phases that were lost in bankruptcy by our developer. In the current phase that we live in today, there are 8 vacant developed lots that could have a house built on them today. If you look at Chisholm, the boundaries of Chisholm, given the recommendation, so starting there at that pink line and moving back up to the north area, which would effectively be that area. In Chisholm, there are currently 5 active developments and 5 planned developments. Of the 5 future subdivisions, none have started groundwork and none are forecasted for homes in 2018. Within the currently proposed recommendation, in 2017, only 8 new home starts and 8 new home closings were done. So it is an unbalanced scale to the highest extreme.
In 17, there was only 7?
In 17, in the pink area you see on the map right now, there were 8 new home starts and 8 new home closings in 17. In the Adams area, there are, of the 5 future developments, out of the 11 active and 5 future, 2 have active groundwork under them going on right now, and will be starting homes in this year. Within the proposed boundary in 2017, in that blue area, in 2017, 572 new home starts and 571 new home closings. So there's your discrepancy. It is a numbers problem that you, quite frankly, can't look at holistically. To balance the scales would be very difficult to create equivalent enrollment across the district because of where the pockets of growth are.
When was Chisholm built? Was it the 3rd middle school or the 4th?
Chisholm was built in 1998, alongside Medlin. So Medlin and Chisholm were both built in the same year. Prior to that, the only school that existed in the middle school was actually, I believe, some of my historians in the room, I think it was Northwest Middle School, which is now today Pike Middle School. So at that time, and again, this is just assumptions, I'll lean on any historians to speak to it, it would make sense that they put one in the east and one in the west. You had a centrally located middle school, and so you went east and west. I don't know how anybody would have known to go east and south, but I can't judge that from 20 years ago.
So I guess that was what I was trying to get at, is why was Chisholm built there? Because, we've been here almost 11 years in the district, and we live in the Alliance Corridor, and there's been growth since then. But was it put there for geographical reasons or for growth reasons? Or does anybody know?
I have to lean on the historians. It's
Okay.
20 years ago. Again, my assumption is one in the east, one in the west. We heard that from a former board member the other night. So
The North Fort Worth growth was not there at the time.
Well, and
Darrell wasn't there.
Right.
None of that growth was
Right.
there.
Okay.
And Steve, I think this district has a history of being a consolidated school system.
yeah,
Right.
And so the notion was that the communities have the support that they need, north, south, east, west. So that was, and I think that part of the idea was to really position the consolidation to have representation.
Okay. Because it just seems like we're at the mercy of where the developers go. And I wish we can get them to go out to that Rome, Aurora, Newark area, but we can't give any financial incentive. But I don't know. I don't know what it would take to get developers to go out there unless the cities themselves gave some. Because
and again, that's why I think we need to go back to the committee, because, as you said, the development is all in the southeast corner, and we're already filled to capacity, but we don't really need another middle school based on the 10-year projections. So that's my concern.
Ms. McClure, could you bring up study 5 again? Now, I can see this, as a fast growth district. This is going to be a discussion every year, and I can almost see this being next year's discussion because of what you were saying about 114. If that really is the case, if 156, and that's the reason I was late today, is I just got stuck, and every time I tried to take a shortcut, I got stuck again, and it didn't work. So if that truly does open up, and the 18-wheelers can get through easier, then I can see that being a solution. But for next year, because right now we just don't know. We're playing a guessing game.
We know the homes are platted. I mean, they're there. Yeah. I mean, it takes someone selling and doing something completely different. Right now, those 6,000 homes are on the books with.
But nobody's moving there. Yeah,
nobody's moving.
Okay. Yeah, I guess so delaying it further, and when we first voted on it, what got me is when I went home and talked to my wife about it, she said, "Hey, you're not going to be able to hire the best teachers because we're delaying the hiring." So then I didn't sleep all the night because of that. Because as a parent, I want the best of the best to be in the classroom teaching my kids, and so I really don't want to delay it any further than we have to, because everybody's planning for next year. People need to get in place so they can move, and yeah. So I guess delaying the vote, that's what concerns me, is the actual hiring of the staff.
And again, I say this very sincerely, because I do feel like 2 years from now, after the sixth graders have already gotten their uniforms, we'll come back and they'll need to move again because we'll have overcrowding. And those similar kinds of situations happen on the north side with Byron Nelson and Northwest. We've approved the staffing. Teachers are moved regularly, so we haven't limited the hiring, but you're right, they may not know where they're going to land.
Well, based on the meetings and everything I've heard, it seems like if there is going to be another middle school, it's going to affect the Wilson-Adams area more than anything, because that's where the growth is.
And Tidwell.
And Tidwell. Okay.
Tidwell stays impacted throughout this time and next time.
Okay. So I guess, I mean, granted, yes, I want to make Chisholm more populated. But to spread the pink box where it takes up a third of the district, and just the bus time too. I mean, you hear the bus situations, the times that they have now, and then all the emails we have from all sides, as far as going from Schluter to Chisholm to Eaton and switching friends, that brought up some memories of when I was in middle school and junior high. I started in middle school but finished in a junior high, so I had 4 years. In those 4 years, I was in 3 schools, and it's tough. It's really hard at that age. 6th grade was easiest because I was with elementary friends, but 7th grade was the toughest. And then for 8th grade, we moved out to Bedford, things got better. But yeah, I know it's going to, fast growth district, it's going to happen. Things are going to change, but I do like how the committee's foresight into, if changes do happen, it's not going to impact as much as it has in the past. So. But there's growth, and it's going to be that way it's going to be that way every year, so.
Okay, I have a question for you, Mr. McClure.
Yes, sir.
I see this problem as kind of a three-headed monster. One of them is the reduction of the students we have at Chisholm Trail. Number 2 is creating a neighborhood school where some of these folks are having to drive a long ways back the opposite direction from where they live. And then the third thing is, maybe the most important to me, is what is our contingency plan for 2 years down the road? Do we have space for enough portables that we can push that red line out a couple more years? Because as I looked at option number 4, it kind of pushed that red line out to 22, 23. And if we went with the boundary as the committee has directed, we've got a problem in 2 years. So what's our contingency plan to push that red line back out?
Yeah, the actual number that Adams can hold is about 1325. So the contingency plan is that we do have portables available that can help push that number. The problem you run into is not the total number of students our middle school can handle. You can't look at that holistically because of the disparity across the district. Chisholm is faced with an unfortunate problem of the high-density, high-yield neighborhoods are separated from the proximity to Chisholm by low-density, low-yield neighborhoods, which are your acreage homes. So your 1 acre to 3 acre homes all create a buffer around Chisholm right now. So that high-density areas and those high-yield areas is what's driving the need. So you have to look at where the schools that are being impacted, the Adams, the Wilson, the Tidwell, who are all right in the heart of those 3 high-density pockets. And we know more density is coming in and around those pockets. That is why the board made sound decisions on land purchase in the middle of Haslett and along 170, both with middle school sites, because those are in the heart of the high-density, high-yield neighborhoods with more development coming around them. So that the answer to your question is the short term is portables in a school with more square footage than any other middle school we have. And then we have to look to the future of where does that next middle school go to relieve the 3 high-density, high-yield pockets of middle schoolers.
Okay, so the current bond that we have is projected for 4 years, 3 or 4 years. We don't know exactly when. So and
we're a year into it.
If we are not able to pass a bond the next time around, do we have enough money to pay for the portables? Do we have enough space to put them on?
We currently have about a dozen portables, of which we have very few in use. I can think of 2 right now that are in use. So we have the room at Adams. We have the portables in inventory. So I think we could sustain one bond not passing. I don't know how we would sustain two bonds not passing. That would be a very difficult problem.
Any other comments on the motion that's on the table? I'll call for a vote. All those in favor? Those opposed? Motion fails 2-3. That brings us back to 8C.
Mr. President.
Mr. Sproles.
I move to approve the attendance boundary for Adams Middle School as recommended by the administration.
A motion has been made by Mr. Sproles, seconded by Ms. Kopp. Any further discussion on this item? All those in favor?
Well, I'm sorry.
Oh, yes, sir. Go ahead.
I saw Judy. I thought she was getting ready to talk, so I was going to wait. But no, I just want to reach out to the public and just say I really appreciate all the emails from both sides and all the town halls and people coming up to open mic and talking. But what kind of surprised me is one email we received today was from a student. Out of all this, we got one from a student, and I said, and that was awesome to actually hear their input as well. So, yeah, this is one of those things. It's no matter what we do, someone's not going to be happy, and I hate that about this position. But yes, I read all the emails and I appreciate all the feedback. So but yeah, we're a fast-growing district, so it's going to be an issue every year.
Any other discussion? All those in favor? Those opposed? Motion carries 3-2.
Thank you, Board. Thank you, Tim.
Thank you, Board. Thank you, Dr. Warren.
Moving down to number 9, reports. Dr. Warren.
And we have another Tim show, and even better,
yes,
a Sarah show.
Well, dynamic duo was already taken, so I don't know if we're Tom and Jerry or Superman and Superwoman, but we'll proceed on. Sarah's going to start off with construction update, and then I will finish with the planning update.
This one. Good evening. Just our overview of what we are doing for construction as well as our planning projects currently. Here's our view of Adams. This was taken about a week ago. Just wanted to give you all sides and just to see the difference in the last 2 weeks since we've been here, 3 weeks. You can see the canopy is finished in the back. It's the same concept as we have at Wilson. Here's a view of when you walk into Adams Middle School. You're looking at the library. You can see at the top of the picture, that is the second floor connection. We've got some collaborative areas for students, and they're able to look down into the entrance of the school. Here's a picture looking back at the entrance. You can see the vestibule where they have to go into the office and then come out. You have the attendance office there with the window, and then on the left is our counselor's office. One thing we did change from this school to Adams, or from Wilson to Adams, is the counselor's office. The door is across the hall from the office. At Wilson, that door's around the corner. Administration didn't like sending parents or anybody that needs to go see a counselor or an AP around the corner, so this is a way they can keep an eye on them until they get into the counselor's area. This is, so the stairs that are going upstairs at the connection, this is one of the grand stairs that we have. We have, it's covered because we want to protect it during construction, but these are charging stations for students. We also have a bench for studying, relaxing, doing what they need to do during the day. And then on the other side of the stairs, we have learning steps. So classes can come out here, little small groups, just general things. We have that on, it mimics the other side. So we have 2 stairs on either side of the entrance, and just these little spaces that students are able to utilize throughout the day. This is upstairs looking down at that space. Down below under the stairs is that charging station. And then you have the landing on the stairs. Those windows go into, you can see into the library. This is the front office. As you can see, we've already put in the safety and security upgrades here. We have a door that it won't allow you to go back unless you are buzzed into the space. This is one of our collaboration areas in the hallway, one of the academic hallways. A monitor will go there where kids can connect and use their computers or devices. And this is down the hallway of art and CTE and skills for living and life skills. To the right, you can see displays. That's for the art room. They can display their artwork. On the left, you see charging station. We have those throughout the hallways just so kids can charge their devices, work on it standing. You can also, there'll be furniture where you can sit as well. Just a view of the restroom. We're getting finishes in. Here's our classroom. We're getting carpet in. We have ceiling tile is pretty much the last thing that goes in to make it look nice and pretty, ready for students. Next project is Lizzie Curtis. This is our elementary down by 287 and Bonds Ranch. We are standing currently in the cafeteria looking, or in the gym cafeteria looking into the gym at the stage. This is just showing you guys, this is our first project to do ICF walls. I wish I would have brought one in, but it's Legos for adults. It's pretty much what it is. They just stack and keep going. It's interesting to watch them form those walls. So just a few pictures of the site with all the exterior walls going up. And here's an overview of the site. We have one more concrete pour, which will be Friday for this project, and then 2 crews for the ICF walls. We have 1 crew in the cafeteria and gym to get the second height of the walls, and then the second crew is for the rest of the building to keep moving on it. Here's just a show you where we are on slab. E and F will be poured on Friday, and then the red lines are the ICF walls, which are pretty much the perimeter walls throughout the school. Next project is Hughes Addition. On the orange, that just shows you where we're adding on. For this school, at the gym and cafeteria, which is at the bottom of your screen, we're coming out on the expansion like we did for Granger, but we're also adding a stage to the backside of the gym because this is the first prototype of this school, and our stage was the part of the cafeteria. It was not a separate piece in that original design. Here's an aerial of part of the site. You can see in the cafeteria we're adding on currently, and we actually have poured that concrete since we've taken this picture. And there's our stage addition. The gym addition will happen once we get the cafeteria up and going and available to use the space. We'll start on the gym, and hopefully that'll be before school starts, so we get a good time frame on that addition. Here is to connect E and F. And they've actually poured that concrete as well. So there's the steps going into the cafeteria. And again, remind you, with this being the first prototype school, the gym and cafeteria are not leveled. They're on different elevations. That would be the reasoning for the steps to go up into the cafeteria. This is the stage, which this is them forming up, but they've actually already poured the concrete that was done last week. This is the wings between E and F, and that also has been was poured last week. This is our famous courtyard. We are slowly, carefully working in here. We don't have a schedule on slab, but we're just fine on schedule. So we just want to make sure we do it right. And any questions on construction? Thank you.
I do have one question. I know in Curtis we're going to have lots of stairs, and so can you just review how we're going to accommodate folks that might be in a wheelchair or have,
No, not Curtis.
That's not Curtis.
I'm sorry.
We have a ramp.
Next one. Okay.
Yeah.
And there's
But
a
we
ramp.
still have the stairs in Curtis. What you just showed, the steps?
That is Hughes.
That's Hughes.
And there's a ramp.
Okay. Thank
if
you.
Needed.
Thank you.
I would also like to further clarify one very important point that my colleague left out. They're not just Legos for buildings. There's actually 4 to 8 inches of concrete being poured between those two things. So don't just think that they're just being snapped together. There's a lot of concrete going around those walls. So, okay, here's the list of planning. Of course, there's a lot going on, and I have to say I'm absent-mindedly forgot to include on here because we're so early in the process our safety and security upgrades at all our campuses throughout the district. We have gotten a consultant on board, and we're in the process of going through that scenario. That's the key piece that we will start with the construction this summer. It will probably last through all of next school year to get every campus up to date. But that is basically the doorbell system. So you'll have a camera and a buzzer at the front door that will go to reception. They will have to buzz you in. And then I'm going to flip back real quickly to Adams because Sarah had a good shot of the scenario that we're talking about. It's a little hard to see, but I'll point to it. You see this door here that goes back to the administrative wing. A lot of our campuses, as you know, have this reception area, but then this is just open to go back into the administrative area. And so that is also part of that enhancement to bring in a door system that keeps you, if you're a visitor, you're contained in the actual reception area until someone allows you to either go out into the school or to be escorted back to admin. Along with that will be the intruder function locks that go in every classroom. So a lot of hardware, door hardware, camera systems, and a few little walls and doors here and there, as well as access control, which we are all familiar with the fobs to get in and out of the buildings. That's going to get an upgrade across the entire district. The biggest thing to know with that is the key component is once we upgrade that system, we will be able to know if a door is ajar or has been opened forcefully. So right now, the system doesn't tell us that. So we're in a process of making those updates, but that should have been listed on here as we have started those meetings the week before we left for spring break. And again, to board, I'd also just like to thank you. I know you're seeing a lot of new imagery, but we had so much work being done over spring break, we didn't want to put imagery in here and then it not be updated for you tonight. So I'm going to jump right in. Ag barn and renovations and the Prairie View and Hatfield partial roofing and HVAC replacement. The Ag and Prairie View and Hatfield is all going to be bid as one. We figure that's going to be our best bet to actually save a little dollars consolidating those projects and make it more interesting and more competitive for people to want to bid that versus two small projects. Of course, here's the aerial. I'll highlight in red. It's really a little bit hard to see there. The current ag, 2 barns and the arena. We've planned for a 3rd barn in the yellow that's come on the aerial there. I'm going to zoom in to that plan just so you can kind of see. Currently, if you look at the new barn to the bottom of the screen, that will now house all our cows. The barn to the left, which currently houses the cows, will now be the pig barn. And then the barn to the right will be, Celine, help me, goats and sheep? Goats and sheep, I got it. So we have now expanded, so we have more room for more animals in all those categories. And then the arena is being enclosed in around the top so that it's not an open-air facility, and it'll make life a little bit more easier for those spectators on those cold days that y'all are showing out there, right? Here's just a real brief kind of rendering of what the inside of that new cow barn. I feel like I'm saying it wrong. Cattle, thank you. There we go. Cattle barn, cattle, I don't know. So the cattle barn, that's what it looked like inside. Again, very similar to the existing barn structures that we already have out there, with some accommodations for those larger animals that we don't have currently. Natatorium, we're in the programming stage. We've been working very hard with Joel and his team, and the swim coach at Byron Nelson to really kind of dive in and make sure we have all the pieces that we want. We have a very, very rough sketch right now that we're looking at. So this is really just starting. We've done the tours. We're starting to itemize those spaces and making sure we're counting everything off. You can see we're looking at a 50-meter competition pool with a diving area and then a practice pool over to the left. That would also be that pool that's separated from the diving and competition area. Also serves as the best place for us to do swim lessons for all our little ones throughout the district. And so running swim lesson programs and water safety programs through there will be very beneficial to all our students. Okay, moving on to Byron Nelson. When we've got a lot of work that has been done on this project. I'm just going to kind of run through this as briefly as I can. Wanted to show you some of the images that we didn't get to see last time, just to kind of get you up to date. Here is the student parking analysis and just kind of where faculty, student, service vehicles, buses, where does all those people park currently. That's important because we started looking at the traffic flow. It's a little bit difficult to see, but you know the school, you've got this lane that comes right in front of the campus, and then everybody has to cross that lane to get to the school or to get back out to the athletic venues. And so we continue to analyze that route, and we said, well, we know we're going to have to bring in some additional parking, and we think that'll happen here. We know we're going to have to put a field house for the facility for the outdoor sports is what we've talked to with the bond program. And so what we've looked at is starting to create a plaza that connects these two so it keeps our students safe, so they never have to cross vehicular traffic as they come to and from the field house and the athletic venues and back to main campus. I'll show you, we've got some great images to show you on what that starts to look like. Here's just that kind of new rendered map. So you can see this plaza connection coming across. The students would then make their way around, and here's the field house. This is the schematic level, so there'll be some changes as we move forward into DD. You start to see the addition of the classroom wing here we're going to get into as well. And then the renovations inside the building. So currently, what you're seeing there is there's some central renovations, there's some counseling, that little square up to the center of those three squares, and then the fine arts additions. We're going to dive into those areas as well. And then on the second floor, that bigger square currently houses a lot of our athletic programs, and so we're recapturing that back for classrooms in the sense of moving and making that outdoor athletic facility for all our outdoor teams, the track, soccer, baseball, football, softball, all that. So if we dive into the second floor, I'm going to start on the second floor and work our way back down. So if we dive into that area, here's what you're seeing is you're starting to see these classrooms get laid out. The blue areas are starting to open up and provide those collaboration spaces. So we've not waited on this scenario to say how we're going to go back and retrofit. We're going to start to implement collaboration areas as we're doing at all grade levels right now, and similar to kind of what Eaton has, but having those scenarios where students can collaborate outside the classroom, still under the supervision of the staff. This gray area is currently the weight room for all athletics, which will be relocated out to the field house. And we're looking to capture that back as athletic uniform storage, as well as give our golfers an area to do some indoor simulation and putting and things like that. So that's still being worked on as well. We are adding 3 counselor offices in the counselor suite. So we've worked through that process. The fine arts, all 3 big venues are getting expansions. So choir, orchestra, and band are all expanding. Choir is expanding by taking some space that was currently offices and storage and relocating it. And then there's 2 small additions coming on to the orchestra and the band hall to allow for the growth of those programs as they're busting at the seams. Moving down now to the area below that classroom that was renovated, that was also athletics, but it was there's a lot of mixture in athletics. Since we moved the outdoor sports out to the field house, what we did was revamp this area so that you have your boys and girls indoor sports and all the coaches' offices. Everything in yellow is a coach's office. Everything in green is a locker room area. We moved the weight room downstairs. That was actually most specifically so it wasn't right next to curriculum classes, because they make a lot of noise in those weight rooms. They turn the music up loud, they're dropping weights, and so we said, let's get it downstairs, so we're moving it downstairs. And then the gray areas are our wet areas, are our showers and locker room areas. there's pretty much, I know it's hard to see on the screen there, but there's a defining line, and so you have girls sports on one side and boys sports on the other, with coaches at the end of each entry point to those areas. So really well protected to keep our male and female athletes from any curiosities of going in the other one's locker room. The other thing that's, if you've been to Byron Nelson, you know, is a challenge, and that's their entry. Their entry is such a pinch point. It's really hard to see when you're trying to check into the office area. And so you can see up here an expansion. Before that entry set, right here, and all this was open. We're now bringing this out, bringing that reception out where it can have visual sight lines to the front of the school so it can see people as they approach. Of course, they'll have the buzzer system. They won't be allowed in until they actually are buzzed in. Creating a nice waiting area, lobby area here that is more receiving than what we have currently. And then, of course, this would all be glazed area to see out into this beautiful, lobby space or atrium space that we have out here. But now, as you're approaching the building, you don't have to try to find the front door. You're going to see some signage and some things straight on your approach that allow you to come in to that vestibule, and provides our administrative team sight lines out as to see who's approaching the building. So some really exciting things there. As far as the addition goes, this is early kind of block schematic design. If you remember, I told you we went through all this with the students and the staff. We're going back this Wednesday to kind of share with them this update. So they were very, very influential in this process, as I showed you at the last update. We took some inspiring images as we talked through with the kids and said these are the type of spaces we would like to see and have. And ultimately, now we're looking at that classroom wing. I'm going to zoom into it. Before I do that, just you can kind of see we carry that same kind of curvature that's along this back. So we picked up that same architecture, and then we created this kind of hinge point to connect the buildings, and then it's connected at this wing too. So you have connectivity throughout the entirety of the buildings now. It's a 3-story addition. One of the really neat things that we wanted to accomplish when we started in this was give culinary arts a place where they could showcase their work, and people could come and actually eat and not have to go find where that bistro is. And so culinary arts now exists all on the first floor here. The bistro is actually this little thing kind of jutting out. You'll see that in the imagery. It's a neat concept there to draw attention to it so people can find it easily. We have some classroom spaces around this kind of circular area it has a circular stair that kind of opens up to all 3 levels. As you move up, your next level is your biomed programs. So those all exist here. Again, some additional classroom space. All the blue area is circulation or collaboration space. And then as you move to the 3rd level, you have your biology classrooms. Another thing on the ground level, kind of over here connecting to this existing staircase, is our engineering program on the 1st level, and then our architectural program right above it. So they have some connectivity up and down the stairs right there to one another. The one neat thing we did is we went ahead and took a classroom away from the existing building and really tried to open up this corridor. I don't know if you've ever been there during a bell change, but if you've ever tried to be in those stairs in the middle of that 3-story classroom wing, it's quite challenging. So we wanted to make this a spot where hopefully at least this half of the wing would want to come this direction to get up and down, and we provided them more room to do so than just the hallways and the stairs that they have today. So here's the pretty pictures. These are awesome pictures. Glenn Partners and Perkins and Will have done a great job. You can kind of see the aerial. Here's that classroom wing coming in here, and here's the rotunda that's connecting those 2 pieces. You can see the plaza that starts to take shape to connect over. We would have a hard surface here, but we would protect that with bollards. So if we ever needed to bring transportation, for a parade or something, we could take those bollards out and you could have parades to the front. But for the most part, it would be restrictive. So you're going to have kind of vehicular circulation on this side and vehicular circulation on this side. The next imagery gets us down to kind of a ground level on that classroom wing addition. You start to see the Byron Nelson blue. They're very proud of the Byron Nelson blue. They've told us many times. And so we started to play with that a little bit with the bistro and start to call attention to the bistro by using that Byron Nelson blue. Still working on materiality at this point. And again, these are SD renderings, so you will see some changes as we move forward. And then here's the engineering lab. It has a roll-up garage door straight from that space so they can get large material in and out. and, of course, architectural lab right above it. And it's one of my favorite shots. Here's the inside of that courtyard. You can see the rotunda connecting the old wing and the new wing. These are the art studios. I think we got a little art person here doing some painting outside. But you got these art studios here. And then basically to the back of camera over here to the left is where the library is. So you start to create some great outdoor spaces that are protected for these kids to use as they get back and forth through the school. Okay, moving out to the field house. So a very important piece about the field house is the new code requirements require that we provide a storm shelter that can withstand a tornado winds up to 250 miles an hour for the entirety of the building, including staff. So the great thing is a field house is a great location for that. You don't have a lot of furniture in there. You don't have any windows. It's a lot of open space. So what you're seeing in the planning here is this is the first level, and this would be the entirety of the storm shelter, and then this is the second level, and I'll show you what all this stuff means, but we have some connectivity to the top of the roof of the first floor. As we move forward, again, some inspirational imagery that we went through with staff and students about how could we make the building be a workout tool for us, how do we make it inviting as these kids get out there and start to work out. And so that imagery led to some of this planning. So what you're seeing here is on the bottom level, you have all your locker room spaces. Again, this would be your storm shelter area. You have your entry here, and you have training room right here in the core. So you've got a center spine that divides female sports from male sports. Both of them have direct access to training. Both of them have direct access up the stairs or the elevator to the weight room. Everywhere in yellow are coaches, so you've got coaches scattered throughout the locker room facilities, as well as your head coaches of your team sports here. Your campus coordinator, head coach is right here in the front reception, but here's where you have your softball head coach and baseball head coach and soccer head coach and so on and so forth. And then a team room up here that any of the sports could use to do some team planning. That's actually 2 classrooms with a divided wall. And then this big weight room that actually spills out on top of this concrete deck. Because of this having to be a storm shelter, we have to have a concrete deck that won't have uplift during the winds. So we said, let's utilize that as a plaza level that creates some exciting elements for when you're working out in those programs. So again, that grade area, that's your storm shelter. Again, that's planned per square footage, per code to accommodate our campus as a whole at capacity with staff. And then we'll move on. Here becomes some of the imageries. We've kind of grayed out or whited out everything so you can kind of see what we're trying to do here. This is the football stadium. So you've come in from the school. You start to approach this boulevard. One of the concepts we're looking at right now, this may be a booster program concept, but having this kind of boulevard of champions or Bobcat Boulevard, and where you could have some pavers, and you'll see this as we go to the next slide, that acknowledge the different teams' accomplishments, whether it's a state accomplishment or individual accomplishment, that gives them opportunity to showcase that, and you start to approach the building. So let's get down there at street level. Here you kind of see one that says Bobcat Soccer, and you'd have the pavers in here that talked about all the championships they've won or the divisions they've won. Start to approach the field house. You can see it facing you. Again, here's this workout element that we're going to go through here in just a minute when I show you a little bit closer. As you get up close, here is, this is coming from those coaches' offices on the second floor. They have direct access down. Here's the entry into the building. And again, we have spill out from the weight room, or from the training room and the locker rooms to come this direction for baseball, softball, to go the other direction for soccer, football, or to come out either direction and head towards the track for your track and field events. Here's the other view that shows this. So what we have here is an incline ramp that is used now by a lot of major sport complexes that helps provide speed training. We have some jump scenarios that can also be used as a pavilion to sit and talk and have team discussions, but these are jump ledges so that you can practice jumping up and down. And then you have an area of a deck that overflows from the workout from the weight room, so you can do other calisthenics and other processes as you're going through different drills. And all that would spill down to the practice fields. Okay, that was a lot on just that one project, but there's a lot to cover in that project. It is our largest bond project wholly in the district. I'll pause if you had any questions about this before I get to elementary, and I'll be real quick on elementary and be done. Okay, I'll take a breath and I'll take a drink. I think there was a reason I'm the only report tonight. We've got a bad reputation. Okay, new elementary school prototype. Again, you've seen this image. This is the rough image. We've got some new renderings to show you and just kind of walk you through the building. Here's the plan. Again, we have these classroom wings. They've got planning areas and breakout areas for different reading recovery and different events, and then your classrooms that surround a collaboration area. Each wing has a closed-down security portal, basically, so you can close down in a lockdown. You can close down that entire wing, in and of itself. Your administration area here, your special needs groups here, the storm shelter component, which is now the gym. Of course, we've talked about that having to be separate from our standard, which is putting the cafeteria and gym together, because we have to have that rigid frame to support those 250-mile-an-hour winds. So that supports, again, all students and all staff could take shelter in here in the event of a storm. Music spaces that actually open up to the back of the stage for the cafeteria, and then art spaces that have an art patio back here, your kitchen and cafeteria, or your kitchen area and serving, and then your cafeteria. And then this commons, this learning commons, or what we would call a library, has been nicknamed the Learning Commons, that has kind of the heart of the district of the school in mind, very open feel, and then a makerspace element here. As you move up to the second floor, again, it's the same model of plans with the collaboration space, planning space, storage, and breakout room, as well as all levels have that ability to go out to some enclosed covered patios and provide some learning and a protected element outdoors there as well. You have the walkway that comes across that also serves as balcony for performances for the cafeteria, and then a staircase here, elevator, staircase here. So here's the updated, more photorealistic renderings as we're moving into from DD into construction documents. Get a little bit closer here to that front entry. You start to see, as you're approaching that front entry, the glazing here, nice and transparent, so the receptionist can see who's approaching the door. Again, buzzer and entry system with a camera. Last time, if you remember, I showed you maybe some gardening elements for that outdoor courtyard, and we're taking elements from the Harvest community. So this is kind of what that rendered view starts to look like. These trellises and these type of trees and vegetation are all taken from the Harvest community. You can see that box, which is the makerspace that starts to open up, and some stone seating, so you can have a classroom setting here or a performance setting here. You can see that nice shaded area underneath for our special needs and our pre-K and pre-PCD students to be able to enjoy some outdoor activities without going out into the elements if they so choose. And then we'll move indoors. Here is the library scenario looking back to that courtyard now. You have some collaboration spaces on either side, and then you have this makerspace box right here in the middle. It serves as a part of the library. So we had the nest before. We brought the nest down to the ground. We still have a pretty cool element, I think. We've nicknamed them learning dens, and so our reading dens. So you have an opportunity to set kids on the stair, or they can go up there and read in groups, or stay at ground level and read groups. But you could set a whole class up here and read to them. And so this starts to play again with the elements of kind of that nature sitting below the trees, the walkway above, and you see how that just has that open access from the school. Here's a shot into the cafeteria with the stage here. This walkway again above you is what you're seeing here, and you're starting to see some of these translucent / transparent panels that are going to line the cafeteria to help with that sound absorption, keeping the sound of the cafeteria in that space. And then here's that collaboration area that we've talked about. Still working through some of the furniture needs there. These are just space fillers for now, so don't latch onto those too much. But we have this great marker board surface with a couple of steps. Students can come out here and do marker board collaboration. They're going to have a monitor that they can plug in and do stuff digitally, and be able to sit out here multiple classes at one time and listen to presentations or collaborate among each classroom. There you go. I'm going to stop talking now. It's a lot of information. Any questions on the planning pieces?
Has a location for the natatorium been selected yet?
We are doing a site fit study currently for right across from this building in the baseball practice field. So with our turf scenario, I was actually talking to Coach Johnson tonight about how baseball teams were liking their turf, and he said they haven't looked back. They're loving it. And so one of the things is to recapture that space. It gives us great proximity to stadium parking as well as this administrative lot, so we don't have to build a lot of parking. We can use that shared use facility and parking that we already have established. And so we're looking in that scenario right there.
Okay. And then the storm shelter at Byron in the new field house.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, because it's going to take a while to get from the third floor of the rotunda to the storm shelter. What are you looking? When do you call? Have you started thinking about when to plan to evacuate to the storm shelter?
We're going through studies right now that we're seeing across other portions of the country as far as how those procedures work. The code allows you to be door to door less than 1,000 feet. You can't be more than 1,000 feet. We are less than 1,000 feet. It's close, but we're less than 1,000 feet door to door. It's gonna be a challenge. Those are some drills we're gonna have to run. We currently have one storm shelter already in place because of the Beck addition, and that's in the same municipality, and Trophy Club had adopted that scenario that we had to go ahead and put a storm shelter in there. So we're currently working through those procedures with Mr. Conklin to make sure that we're handling egress to those areas appropriately. But we're still early in that process. It's a little bit strange for us. We're right on the line of requirement. If you go to Waco, it's not required. You go from Waco north through about a third of the district it is. So there's not a lot of practice in place yet in the North Texas region. So we're having to kind of reach out of state to other places that have those storm shelters. The code just started requiring it in 2015. So a lot of municipalities don't even adopt codes for 4 or 5 or 6 years. So it's just now starting to come into place. There's a lot of lessons learned we're going to have to look at when we're...
Yeah, we're just also curious about it. When do you start evacuating at a tornado watch? Or because a tornado warning might be too late. So
right,
that's what I was wondering.
That'll be part of our emergency operation procedures that we'll establish. Yes.
Super excited about all of the renderings there.
Yeah.
Me as an engineer, I'm much more conservative, so I love the spaceship-looking elementary school, but can you give me a cost comparison between like a basic elementary that we're building now versus the new prototype?
They're right in line, actually, with the exception of the storm shelter. We just recently put the one that Sarah was showing you, Lizzie Curtis, on the ground, and the cost figures we're getting from our construction manager at risk right now are just maybe a couple of dollars a square foot higher than what we were seeing that bid for Lizzie Curtis last year. Now, that being said, there's a huge asterisk on what the cost of that storm shelter is. That storm shelter, we're hearing from both the design on Byron Nelson and the design on Lizzie Curtis, 2 different architectural groups and engineers working through that, 2 different construction managers working through that, and we're hearing a range from $350 a foot to upwards of $415 a foot. So that storm shelter piece is still very much the big cost impact. Our elementary square footage costs $234, I think $230 to $235, somewhere in that range. And like I said, I think Lizzie Curtis came in about $230 or $228. So really quite in line with what we're seeing there.
Thank you, Tim.
You're welcome. We had to push and prod to get it to there. Don't get me wrong. I mean, it was a lot more when we went through the process. I mean, the exciting part of that process, engaging the students and the staff, and that timeline we showed y'all, very exciting. But our wish list was huge, so we've been, compacting it to get it back down to that budget.
Any other questions, board members? Thank you, Mr. McClure. I think we may need some desks in the boarding room at some point in time. Okay, moving down to item 10, consider any items removed from the consent agenda, and there were none. So moving to 11, Board President's report. I don't have much. Election day is Saturday, May the 5th. Be sure and get out and vote. And I will say for the audience's benefit, and we've had a couple of split votes, 3-2 tonight, and I want to tell you how much this board takes kids come first serious. So we don't always agree on the same thing, but this is a democracy that we live in. We have a debate team for UIL, so a healthy debate is good for what we do. So just letting you know we're all on the same page up here. And that's all I got. So moving to the superintendent's report, Dr. Warren.
Board, just a couple of things. If you get onto Facebook Live at all, I'm having a community presentation about safety. It's a one-topic presentation on school safety. Hope to get a lot of good dialogue with our community members, our parents on that, and that's going to be Thursday, March 22nd at 6:30 p.m. And then if you have absolutely nothing to do on Friday night, I will be at the Steele Accelerated High School cafeteria. The kids are putting on their very first theatrical production of Much Ado About Nothing, and that will be Friday at 7 p.m. at Steele. So we'd love to see you there.
Excellent.
That's all I have, Mr. Schluter.
I've got Lily in